Hey everyone, it's Fox from Inferno Fox Gaming. So I am a huge fan of the Dresden Files book series by Jim Butcher. Here's an example of the first book in the series called Stormfront. And essentially the series itself, it's a urban fantasy series telling the story of Harry Dresden, who is a private eye slash wizard who is literally listed in the phone book. And I know phone book, it kind of ages it because of how there's really no phone book. Maybe he would be in Google or something like that. But he's in the phone book listed under wizard, and he often gets hired out by both humans and non-humans alike. He does often get contracted by the Chicago PD's Special Investigations Unit whenever there are like crimes or big crimes in the city that just don't look right, or they're outside of what is like normally known, because of course humankind is just not ready to embrace the existence of the supernatural. And yes, that's right. It's a book series based in my hometown, Chicago. And it's really cool hearing Harry's story being told as he visits a number of landmarks that are not just in Chicago proper, but sometimes out of the way places like in Woodfield Mall in Schaumburg, for example. While the first book, again, was released in 2000, it is still ongoing today with book number 18 still in the works. And book number 17, the most recently released, Battlegrounds, about 3 years ago in 2020 or 2021. Now, I'm going to include links in the description below to Jim Butcher's website, as well as where the books can be purchased both digitally and physically. This series has appeared in other types of media. For example, there's been a number of graphic novels and comics via the Dynamite comic series, and it features adaptations of the first two books to side stories between the main novels themselves. More importantly, there was a TV show called The Dresden Files that ran for 12 episodes on Sci-Fi back in like early 2007, and it starred Paul Blackthorne as the titular hero, Harry Dresden. While this latter interpretation could be called anything but successful due to its short run, again, one season and like 12 episodes, there is a place for this wonderful series. And I think that place would be a video game series. Now, why would it make a great video game or like series of video games? The player would, of course, control Harry Dresden, and doing so, I mean, you got a badass 6.5-foot wizard who isn't afraid to mouth off to his enemies and also isn't afraid to bring a gun to a wizard's duel. And I also don't know, honestly, how many video games are based in the lore of like urban fantasy. If you do, make sure you let me know in the comments section below. A little bit of research on my end had come up with stuff like Final Fantasy VII. I'm not buying that. I'm thinking like urban fantasy, literally like fantasy elements with like trolls and wizards and everything in big cities. That's not Final Fantasy VII. That's not anything like that. But the Dresden Files is steeped with that kind of lore and so many different supernatural threats and different mythologies. I mean, seriously, you really got to read this book series. It's amazing to see how well Jim Butcher has blended Greek, Norse, Christian, and more within it. That being said, this begs the question of what kind of genre we could see for a Dresden Files game. And I see the game itself being like an RPG, role-playing game, and really kind of like a Persona game, like a Persona type style. After all, Harry is often the victim of a number of perilous deadlines in the book. The player can use this time to dictate Harry's actions and thus spend the time wisely doing so. So like, for example, maybe he'd spend a few hours going into his lab, creating potions for bonuses, such as being hard to perceive, like the graying potion from Full Moon, or cause vampire venom to have no effect. He could spend some time at McAnally's pub to eat and visit the ne'er-do-wells within the wizarding and supernatural communities. Doing so increases trust and like community bonuses, which would entail being able to use them as like sources of information and whatnot. Also, another thing you could do is literally just use time to progress the story by investigating the scenes of the crime. And it's this last point that it sort of shifts from like that Persona style to something more akin to the Ace Attorney series, specifically within the Miles Edgeworth investigation games. These are excellent games. I definitely recommend checking those out to kind of see what I mean. But Harry works with Sergeant or Lieutenant Murphy of the Chicago PD to check out the scene of the crime and sort of investigate from there. Actual battles themselves can occur within this investigation part, or anytime that Harry is traveling between locations when it makes sense. I mean, we're not going to see him get attacked by Black Court vampires in the middle of the day, of course. I mean, and especially as the story progresses, as it pertains to following the books. Now, what kind of battle system would we see for the game? I'm totally old school, so I'd like to see something being like a turn-based affair. And this wouldn't be a bridge too far, as there's a literal yet physical role-playing game for the Dresden Files universe by Evil Hat Productions. Everyone assumes that Harry being a wizard limits him to using magic, but thanks to the training that he receives from Murphy, he's well versed in defending himself with not only, his fisticuffs, his body, but also weapons like his staff being used as like a bow or even firearms. Of course, magic can be used, but Harry is limited not only by how much power is within himself, but what he can call up based off of what environment he's in. Additionally to that part is being a person who thinks of others first, Harry would limit himself purposefully from calling the deepest depths of his power, thus possibly endangering other humans. I mean, how many buildings can he burn down? I know a lot, but my last thought would be like, where in the timeline would this start? Where would we want to see the video games start off here? So not really spoilers, maybe very, very light spoilers beyond the third book. I'm going to do my best to avoid that. But my thought is, let's start this in the fourth book. The fourth book in the series, Summer Nights, because the first three books are like a sort of trilogy. They feature Harry's first series of cases where he learns to deal with love and loss again, and he gains a number of important allies that could join Harry's party as the story progresses from the fourth book on. We also see a much wider introduction of a number of supernatural elements within the fourth book that makes things really get interesting quickly, such as the heavy She or Fae involvement and others from Harry's past coming out of the woodwork. And honestly, I do love the first three books, but these being the first three books from Jim Butcher, they can be a little bit rough around the edges, but regardless of that, again, they're super quality, and I can't recommend them enough. Beyond that, I'm not going to give anything else away on the story because they are just that darn good. I could see maybe like a 16-bit aesthetic with the sprite proportions that are equal to something like Chained Echoes, fitting well for both the heroes and villains and all the characters in between the series, and having large sprites represent some of the supernatural monsters like the trolls. With the series and thus the game itself having that urban fantasy element, I could see the soundtrack being jazz inspired. I think that would fit really well, not just of course with that sort of persona lean, but it would fit the setting for the Dresden Files because of course with it being located in Chicago, you got that jazz, maybe a little bit of Chicago inspired house and blues twinged within that particular within the soundtrack. I think that would really blend in nice. And it'd be great if there would be an indie developer who would love to make this fantastic franchise and turn it into this type of video game. Nothing against the AAA developers, but I feel like an indie developer, they would just get it. You know what I mean? And Jim Butcher has shown that he is ready, willing, and able to work with others to help represent his media. So let me know in the comment section below if you'd like to see a Dresden Files video game series. What it would entail, would it be an RPG? Do you see this being more action RPG or just action oriented like the Hogwarts Legacy? Again, I'd love to start a conversation with you guys. Just make sure that you check out this fantastic book series. It's been running for over 20 years, and if recent interviews are to be believed, it looks like it'll go up to book 25. So we're not without a dearth of material, plus some potential for spin-offs as well. Thanks again for watching, and have a great day.